since opening our doors here, so we went live with our database in April, but we were collecting numbers from the beginning of March, so we opened a month early. Mm-hmm. So in Tillamook County, we served 234 unduplicated individuals in 2016 from our opening of the door. 64% were men, 36% women, 11% veterans, 18% seniors, 21% came to our door with no health insurance, met our assisters within 2 days and were assisted in gaining health insurance, 20% with a disability, 36% chronically homeless, which means they've been homeless more than twice in 1 year and multiple times in the last 3 years. 42% came to us with addiction and alcoholism issues, untreated. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. 29% was diagnosed with mental illness, and less than 10% of them were being actively treated for mental illness. So, and it's not saying that anybody in the mental health field is doing anything wrong. We work with a different population than the active person that can make their appointments, if that makes any sense. Homelessness and being diagnosed with a mental illness is a tough call.
I agree, but I think that we're kind of opening our eyes. Not that we closed them, but when the feds quit funding back in the 80s, we changed, I believe, the way we looked at the mentally ill.
And you're absolutely right, but we also have to remember that we need to know what we're talking about. I mean, what we did was we lost focus on the stats. We have been drawn away from knowing what we're talking about, so it's really hard to go.
I see that when we had damage and all that, we knew where the people were. We had some kind of handle on it. That makes sense.
And so now what's happening is when we go back and we say that we have a problem, we've been doing this in the homeless field for years. We've been going in and going, well, we know we've got all these homeless people, and people look at us and go, you know, I mean, we see some walking down the street, but it's hard for us to gather that you know what you're talking about, and I understand that. And so when you go after dollars to help the homeless population and you don't know what you're talking about, or you bring in statistics based off of stuff you put in a drawer, then they have to take your word for it. I mean, so what we want to do, what we want to do is arm organizations with trackable data drilled down to people and their stories. And when we do that, then we change what that looks like. So now what we've been able to do is when they come through our door and they say they've been diagnosed with a mental illness and that they're not actively seeing a mental health provider in a community, and we ask them the question why. So about 10% of those people who come to our door, that out of the 29% that have been diagnosed, are not actively going to their appointments. So that they've been in the mental health system at some point, but you know, they're not financially equipped to chase around a population of people to help them.
Right.
So they say, okay, we need to see you next Tuesday. And if you don't show up next Tuesday, they go, okay, well, they're not going to get in the car, go down and chase this population around. So we're learning a little bit more about that. And so we're addressing those issues with Gobi. We're addressing them with the state.
Gobi?
Yeah, which is Greater Oregon Behavioral Health.
Thank you.
And what they do is they oversee those pieces. So what we want to do is we want to come to them with data and gained interest, saying we've got a missing population here that we need to address, so we can get better services on site for us to treat people. I don't want to say treat, to help people. Mm-hmm. Once we can do that and we can begin getting assessments and evaluations, diagnosis and treatment, then we better help people in the place that they're at.
But Alan, that's wonderful, because I can see the person that they miss their appointment, that becomes a frustration for them, or an embarrassment. I don't want to try again, or maybe it's just transportation.
They're incapable of doing it. Right.
And if they're not functioning, I think we just said mental health was an issue, so let's make them be organized and focused at the same time.
Yeah, mental health is an issue, but what we got to remember is it's not it's not the services that are being provided, it's the lack of services that are being
Exactly.
provided. So, I mean, our mental health providers are extremely good at what they do.
Boy, I've met
and
some
they're
wonderful ones.
overwhelmed on the budget that they have. So as we begin to gather, and because we call them up and go, hey, listen, we'd like you to come out here. We'd like you to do evaluations. We'd like you to do crisis. We'd like you to do these things. So instead, we go and get our own funding for those positions eventually because they don't have the money to come out and do what we need them to do.
Okay.
So let's go back to 16% victims of domestic violence. At one point, I mean, they have a history of domestic violence in their life. Not saying that they're in danger or anything like that, but we track that number specifically because when people carry baggage in, emotional hurt baggage, we want to be able to address that the best way we can. And so knowing what we're talking about. And then, here in Tillamook County, 19% of the people we serve here are children. So families.
Families.
So there was days here in this facility that we fed more kids at a table than we had adults here. So we had 11 children.
Some joy
and we
in
had
that.
10. Well, it's humbling to see how much trouble families are going through now with lack of affordable housing out there. And then, falling out of the system, one job goes bad, one paycheck goes bad, you can't make your bills, people raising their rents in apartments all over the place, in houses. Yeah. So it makes it incapable for people, and so that's how people end up getting here. And 20% of the people we serve here are sent to us by the jail. We don't serve sex offender population. But if people are getting out of jail and they're homeless, they get a crack coming in our door. We're going to give them a chance if they follow it. But here's the coolest number that you're going to get a kick out of. I was talking with the food bank this morning when we picked up our food. All right. In 2016, we spent $994.96 on our food products for our kitchen. Now, I want you to understand something, that only a fraction of that was the money we spent on food. The rest of it was on spices, on needs for our kitchen, on needs for the meals, the other things that went with our kitchen getting its doors open. $994. So
that'd be impressive for a small family budget, let alone
for a year.
For a year? That's amazing.
We served 8,259 meals out of the kitchen.
So there was less than 50 cents a meal that we're talking. I mean,
it
again,
breaks
I know
down to about 90 cents.
And
that's with everything. So, it was pretty cool to have those numbers drawn up and be able to, because I went into my office and I says to Trina, I said, okay, I need to know how much we spent at the food bank in Tillamook County. And so she went in there and she goes, well, I could pull Tillamook County out, but let's talk about how much the meal cost us. So, we went and picked up, this morning we picked up 236 pounds worth of food from the Oregon Food Bank Tillamook, and our cost was $1.96.
Oh my goodness.
So the way that this food bank is running and how amazing it is, and we're a meal site in the state of Oregon, to be able to track that, you've seen in there, we got a full breakfast bar.
Exactly.
I mean, people wake up in the morning, they come out. We don't even track our breakfasts, and we haven't been tracking our lunches. We're going to get a better handle on that this year, or we would have been up into the 18,000 meal range.
My goodness.
So it's been pretty amazing, huh?
That is really amazing. I was going to, and not to interrupt, we're going to go back to meals in just a moment. Did you see a difference with the cold weather? Did you get any?
We do. We see a difference. I mean, the luxury of the way that we run our organizations and the counties that we provide them in is that most of the time we're a referral organization. So if a person comes down and we don't turn a person away, we will help them unless they're a sex offender. When we roll into colder weather, even a person who's been trespassed from our facility for behavioral issues, and what I mean by that, if they want to continue to actively use, they can no longer be here. If they act out emotionally, and they can no longer be here. We work really close with the police department and the sheriff's department here. So when that happens, they're trespassed from our property for 30 days. They cannot get referred back to our agency.
Okay.
After 30 days, we give them a second shot. So in our active trespass reports, and we have quite a few in this county here, When we run into colder weather, we'll remove the trespass and we'll give them a second shot. The warming center is a really important element here.
It plays a huge role.
It does. It plays a huge role because, we don't serve the low barrier transient population or the sex offender population.
That's what we just saw in the Portland area, to lose 4 lives.
The importance of how we do what we do, because one of the questions was, if you shelter a person and you feed them, is that enabling a person to be in that situation? That was the call. So somebody says, okay, so if you feed a bear and you begin to feed this bear daily, after an amount of time it becomes dependent on the meal, and then it has a hard time surviving in the wild. There's some truth to that. See, I was a low barrier drug addict home. I'm that guy. I'm the panhandler. I was the guy pushing the shopping cart down the road. I was that cat. You could not tell me what to do or how it was going to be done, and there was freedom in homelessness. So the importance of a warming center is that it provides a safe place so you don't die. It's such an important element. The other piece is eventually, if we built this program based off of my story of the things that I learned, the boundaries that needed to be put in place that would force me to get the help that I needed. 4 people dying because of lack of resources becomes a bigger issue than we're lucky in our rural communities.
I agree.
We are. Tillamook County has amazing services.
And amazing people there. I mean, it's when you have a call to arms, they're out there. They want to support you.
They do. They do. On most of our rural communities, there's some that don't have the emergency shelter pieces or the reentry programs in them, but for the most part, most communities come together very well.
Nice.
We're very, very fortunate. Tillamook, Clatsop, Lincoln, Yamhill County.
We didn't get hit as bad as Portland, but it's just so sad. I mean, I know they opened the Portland building, but getting to those that, whether I think the one
pushed
woman
away for so long,
pushed away, and I'm not going to ask, I'm not going to accept, I don't trust you anymore.
Well, and that's what it becomes is you've got a small population of the transient, low barrier alcoholic drug addicts that refuse to, most of them are protecting something internally. And then you've got another, that's only 4% of the population of people needing help. 4% is the visible population. And then you've got these people who have nowhere else to go, and so they get kicked out with a family. They're living in their car. They're living in tents on the side of the road, and you see them with the children. And my heart goes out to them. Absolutely. Because then they get treated the same way. We're not educated enough in most communities about our homeless populations. We want to see that change.
Yeah. You did something today. You had a meeting about Augie's Hope?
Yeah, I joined the board because, we serve a lot of children, and we've had autistic kids in situations, and we've found that it's an amazing thing to see because they're such amazing kids. And my wife, being a mental health child family therapist, is a professional in the field. So it's something that was close to my heart. And so when I first heard the story about Augie and his dad and his family, his parents, trying to work on making sure they educate first responders, I thought was valiant, and I'm a hope-driven guy, so hope is infectious. So I decided I'd like to be involved with that. I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. And so about 6-7 months ago, when I first heard this story, I got together with Nick Troxel, and because I work in the nonprofit sector, them gathering their nonprofit status and stuff, and me having experience in that field, it was a win-win situation for me to get involved. Now we're working on expanding their services into Clatsop County. and to educating first responders and bringing that education piece into outside of Tillamook County. So it's exciting.
I think that's very exciting, and to enable our emergency responders, our officers. I know our sheriff. We've talked about. I want to say he used the number 30% of his inmates have a mental health issue. They really don't belong there, but there's no place else for them to go.
Well,
but the training that his people has, that he feels it's important, it does make a difference.
It does make a difference when it comes to, Augie's Hope right now is specific to autism and educating our first responders. But you're absolutely right. When we want to talk about what the bigger issue is, the bigger issue is the dual diagnosis or the mental health piece. Even
I guess I don't look at autism as a mental health issue.
Correct.
But at all. But if a first responder didn't understand that person looks at the world differently than they do,
correct,
it might be difficult for them to respond.
Well, and it has been, and history shows nationwide that kids or even adults with autism can portray themselves as a threat, and it's been difficult. That they're getting tased and they're getting. And when we become educated on something as important as autism, and we understand and we view that differently, then we react to it differently. And it gives our first responders an opportunity to be educated about something, to react to it differently that could save the life of them and people around them.
Exactly.
I think that is amazing.
It has to be a relief to them. To gain that skill, to gain that new outlook, it takes a burden off of them.
It does, and sometimes, because that's what we want to do. We want to shake the cage to gain interest in it. Because sometimes in our rural communities, we don't see that could possibly happen. And so it's exciting to watch the light bulb come on when they get it. Oh, that makes sense now. Hey, we do it in the homeless world all the time, as soon as you begin to see people differently, people used to look at me when they were driving down the street and they seen a drug addict, they seen a bad guy, but what was going on the inside was completely different than what they seen. And so when we can educate people to that story, major changes happen. And that's why I'm excited about Augie's Hope.
People in the county are really excited about what's happening out here at the port to be revitalizing this building. Is just amazing. It's so wonderful to be in here and to see it. And I think that's one of the reasons that Roby's Appliance and Roby's Furniture and Appliance, I'm glad Cindy Lewis mentioned it the other day. Is it the 18th? They're going to be here for their Serve Day.
Yeah, they run it. Last year they ran a day of service, and when we were just getting ready to get in the building, we were putting in our commercial kitchen, and we got approached by this group. First they gave us these beds, these really important beds, and so they asked us if we could use that, and then they came out. And
I remember those nice looking bunk beds that they gave.
Did all. Yeah, we've got the nicest gel bunk beds for a homeless shelter in the world. I'm just telling you right now, they're so comfortable.
They know how to do a mattress.
They know how to do a mattress, and then they also give us some emergency beds for people if they're traveling, that they can keep themselves up off the ground. And so that beginning partnership with Roby's Furniture was a blessing, and the experience that we learned from it is that when a group of people get together and they put their mind to something, it's amazing how much work can get done in a short amount of time.
You said they did the kitchen last year?
So they demoed our kitchen last year to get us down to studs, and they came in and then they worked on the outside of the building. They put the new bunks on all the bunks before we opened our doors. So we began a relationship with them then. And Cindy again approached and asked if we would be interested in bringing them out again. And now that we're working our way up to get our remodel done, we got our capital campaign going, money's coming in, we're really excited. We've got an architect coming out on Thursday of next week to get our drawings done.
nice.
And so we have a wonderful job for them to come out and do, and we're honored that for the second year that they would take this day to give to something like this.
Have they
Isn't
got
it
a plan? Have they told you? Are you
We
at
do. We do have a plan. And anytime
Of course
we bring
you
a
do.
team of people
Yeah.
out, you know,
It's not-
I mean, when we first did our first floor, we had 130 volunteers, and I'll tell you something.
You
if
got to
don't-
coordinate
if
that.
you don't have a plan, you can be up the creek really fast, you know.
Hear that?
And so, and the other thing is they're professionals. They're amazing, driven group of people, and they come in with a plan as well. Even if they don't know what your plan is when you get here, that they come in to be to work together as a team. Like, you know, we have a lot of days of service from a lot of agencies.
Very nice.
We do. The Creamery is coming out in March. When they're getting their new stuff put in, we're working with a team of people from the Creamery right now, and they're going to come in and do some kitchen stuff, and they're also going to work in our garden. So we're really excited about that. We've been in early conversations about that, and at the beginning of March, that's the next team that comes in as we expand our garden pieces and we start looking at those things.
And that was pretty impressive, those raised beds. You ended up producing a lot of your produce here, didn't you?
We did. Well, all of our produce through the spring and summer comes through our garden. And then, you know, we were fortunate. I don't know what these put in the soil around this place, but it
I think
was
it
like,
might have something to do with our cows.
you know what? It was like soil with Miracle Grow and then Miracle Grow, because you know, our garden went from planting in less than a month to harvest.
I
If you
remember it was right after the Master Gardener's plant sale, and you were putting it in then, and then all of a sudden it was just gorgeous.
Our first harvest was 400 pounds to the food bank, not
Yeah.
counting the food we were bringing in the kitchen.
Isn't that
You know,
nice?
so it was amazing. So we want to be able, you know, we did that as kind of a fluke. You know, Hampton Lumber donated a bunch of lumber. The Rotary Club of Tillamook donated soil. The port donated process material. Terry from the North Coast Lawn, it's good guy. You know, everybody worked together to make that possible, and I don't know, it was like watering it with love. I've never experienced where you could pull a head of cabbage and then you come back 2 weeks later and you have 2 heads of cabbage. I've never seen nothing like that. I'm serious. It was biblical.
I like that.
It was amazing. And you've seen the team of people that came together,
Yeah.
the kids planning.
Oh, everybody
It was
planning it. Yeah, it was wonderful.
This is one of those projects that when everybody comes together, it's visible. And I love the fact that people have chosen Helping Hands to be a part of the community and the drive that's behind that.
Another thing on the other end of the building is the playground. You have some beautiful playground equipment that's gone in over there.
We have. We've gotten several grants for, you know, we want to make sure that we have our classrooms to keep kids busy. We have our cafeterias. We have our reading nook for the kids. That when children come to this place, that it doesn't seem like your stereotypical emergency shelter. You know, this is a home. And so that playground stuff, you know, and we just got another grant from U.S. Bank from Kevin Lacoste for $5,000 for the new base that we're putting underneath the playground. So
Excellent.
we're going to add some new stuff underneath there and some new things that go on the back. So, I mean, we've raised probably close to $19,000 when it comes to our children's programs.
Well, one of the things, though this has a bit of an institutional look because it's still the gray and but I look at it, I don't think of it as institutional, historical. It's
It is.
because it was a Navy base and these were quarters.
It was a Naval Command Center, and so we like the historical piece. So when we tie the history of this building into what it is we're doing, you know, what we want to do is we want to honor the history of this building. We want to keep it the same and stay within those SHPO requirements for historical preservation the best way that we can, and if not, go with a viable option. But if you walk down the hallways, you'll see that, that history look with the navy gray and the white, and the pictures on the wall from the Pioneer Museum, who's a huge partner of ours. And
lucky to have the Albrights in the museum.
Oh my God, I don't know
Gary,
where you guys got them people from, but my God,
We're
I've been trying
lucky.
to steal them, but you can't kidnap people nowadays legally.
I tell you though, truly, when I say it's great, and you would think that I would like people to come and visit with you because there's a warmth around here. Now, one thing we talked about before, Alan, there's a lot of, and you mentioned the veterans, and classes. People, when they come here, it isn't just a place to stay; it's a place to grow.
Yeah, we're program driven, and what we mean by that, if you're a parent with children, we want to make sure your kids are in school, but we also want to make sure that you get tools. If you're a veteran, we want to make sure that you get tools to deal with what you've been through before. So, our classrooms have a class in them every single day. So, and it goes from basic 12-step classes to parenting classes to apartment housing readiness programs. We bring in professionals from all over the place to run a program. So if you're here, you have to follow some rules, and then we're working on a plan to help you reenter society by working with all of our partnering agencies. And it's easier for us to bring teachers to our location than it is for us to haul 30 people to other locations all around town. And so, it's a systematic change because we have a captivated audience. And when that happens, education's wonderful. And our partnerships with the college, with CARE, with TFCC, we really work hard on making sure that we work together as a team.
On referrals, it's not someone doesn't just knock on the door and you let them in. They go through a process to come in.
Yeah, so what we've done is, we have our own bus system here. So people go back into town at 9 o'clock in the morning. They come out here at 5 o'clock at night in emergency shelter. So in order to get to our place, you have to have a referral. So we've met with every partnering agency, every church. There is not a location in this town. The police departments all have a referral. The health department, everybody's got referrals. And what this does is this gives us the ability to understand that we have multiple sets of hands on the people. And, there was a little rumor going around that people were getting bussed in from Portland, and that people seen the buses come in and drop a whole busload of people off. And what they didn't realize was that was our bus.
Who's your bus?
So we got a kick out of that. But this gives us the ability to know where people are coming from and where people are going and who we're working with in the community. So if
and I would think
TFCC
it gives them a sense, the people, the residents, that they have a sense of community.
And it does. And we also, there's a certain amount of volunteer hours that go into, a lot of volunteer hours come in from the outside, and plus the volunteer hours that we give back from here into our community. We're beginning to bring a sense of opportunity here that most of the homeless population hasn't witnessed before, because there was a missing link. You've got amazing services in Tillamook County. You do. CARE is amazing. TFCC is amazing. Senior disability services are amazing. All of those are amazing. But if the shelter piece is missing, then there's a hole in this system. And as we come together, it's community.
We're getting close to this year's Homeless Connect.
Yes, we are.
On, I believe, the 25th.
Correct.
And I would imagine Helping Hands will be there? Or?
Yeah, we'll have a table there because all of the resources in this community come together, and we serve them in each one of the counties. We serve multiple counties.
When they did that the first year, it was amazing what they pulled together, and each year it's just overwhelming. The need is overwhelming. The way the community comes together is just so beautiful.
It is, and the great thing about it is now we can carry it on past that. It's really difficult without temporary shelter. What the cool thing about it is, if you think about it, we could show that this was needed for a long time in this county, just by the staggering numbers in the last 8-9 months.
Do you have room? Do you need to expand? Is your residents, are they fluid to some degree, or?
Well, yeah, we are. So we have we brought reentry into this building. So we did a little moving around so we can make sure that we can keep people on a longer term. And we've got the luxury of having 11 facilities in 4 counties.
Oh.
So, we serve 190 people a night.
That's excellent.
Helping Hands does. So we serve Clatsop, Yamhill, Lincoln, Tillamook. And so the 4 counties together, 11 facilities. So we started out years ago in Clatsop County with a house with 9 people, and now we're the Oregon's largest homeless reentry program.
That's wonderful, and I like that it's a reentry program. It isn't just a place to stay for a cold night.
And that's the important element of it. And then and also the collaboration with the partnering agencies. It's really difficult to have a nonprofit social service agency nowadays. It truly is, and we're all struggling for funding in some form or another. What we've learned over the years is that collaboration and teams and people working together and clarity in data, you put all those things together and then the money comes. It does.
And Alan, one of the things that I always say about this county is so when something needs to get done, they come together. You're just made for this county because people were a piece that was missing.
Well, the organization the concept of homeless reentry is something that we never have really looked at. We've always looked at the problem fragmented. Mm-hmm. So, people need help with their rent. People need certain things, or you need emergency shelter. Well, if we can find a fluid way to run them from falling out of the system into working their way into working with all the agencies, then we build sustainability in a community. And that's the fit. And I was fortunate enough to live on the streets for so long, being such a knucklehead and a bonehead, being turned away and having mistrust and having all those things today. It brings a different view to the problem because we begin to look at fixing it from the bottom up rather than the top down. Yeah. And that's what makes it perfect for me. One, I was a professional panhandler. I begged for money all over the United States. And today I do it with a purpose, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah. And I'm grateful that we get to share it together as a team. And I love Tillamook.
Well, I want you to, before I take off, I want you to show me around a little bit. Now, you've been doing some work on the second floor?
Yeah, so what we're working on right now is we've got an architect coming in. We've hired an architect. We're getting our plans drawn up for the 18 units that we want to put on the second floor.
Nice.
Which will be single occupancy, family occupancy units. We're working together with NOAA right now, and we're working on opportunities for program-based vouchers, project-based vouchers, which will fund each room. And give us an opportunity to hold people here a little bit longer as we can place them back into the community. So we've started our capital campaign. We began at the end of December. We've got our ducks in a row, and if everything works out the way that we have it planned, by the end of summer in 2018, this building will be fully functional and a complete remodel done on it.
How about that radio room up in the
that radio room is Gary and Carla's, and it is the Pioneer Museum's, and that will be brought back to life as a beautiful piece of history, and it'll tie in the history of this building. We're really excited about. We've got lots of plans. We don't mess around. We're in this thing, and we're amazed that we got 100 people ready to do something.
Well, thank you, Alan, and I'm looking forward to sharing this. And I need to get out here more often and have you be sharing the good news on a regular basis.
Anytime, and I'm looking forward to bringing a little different perspective on homelessness when it comes to data sharing and the understanding of the people. I think people are missing the education on our homeless population, and if we can work together to make that happen, I'd be honored to be a part of it.
Well, I'm truly impressed with the way you capture the numbers and the availability of those numbers to help people.
Thanks.
Thanks again.